Hello and welcome to this www.WHEDA-Connect.com presentation as it applies specifically to the correspondent channel where the lender underwrites the loan and closes the loan and then sends documents, origination and closing documents to WHEDA post-closing for a pre-purchase review. The URL or web address that you'll use to access the WHEDA-Connect.com portal is exactly that. It's www.WHEDA-Connect.com. And you'll come to this screen. You'll come into the login screen. And you might be wondering to yourself, well, where do I get my login and my password? The users will get their login and password from their delegated administrator who will work for your institution. The delegated administrator will receive his or her login after he or she completes WHEDA training. There is a separate, if you are a delegated administrator, there is a separate webinar that deals specifically with delegated administrator responsibilities such as setting up users, resetting passwords, setting roles, permissions, so on and so forth. So the user, again, once the delegated administrator has done their training, they would get the user, their login, and their password, and then the user can log in here using that login and password. So I'll sign in here. And in the correspondent channel, things are a very simple process. It's essentially just 2 points of contact within the portal between the lender and WHEDA. You're going to have 1 point of contact when you rate lock the loan, register and rate lock, and then you're going to have another point of contact after you close when you get documentation to us, closing and origination docs. Upload those to WHEDA for our review. So I'll go through the entire process from beginning to end. When you first log in, you come to this is essentially the pipeline screen. And if you operate in multiple channels, let's say you do your Fannie Mae transactions in the correspondent channel, but you might do your FHA transactions in the broker channel. This is where you toggle back and forth between channels. So to register or create a loan, again, first make sure you have the correct channel selected. So I've selected the correspondent channel, and then I'm going to create a loan. Now there are 4 different options for creating a loan. I can import, the first 3 are import options. So I can either import a Fannie Mae 3.2 file here, I can import a Calyx file here, or I can use a DO or DU case number here, enter the case number off the findings, enter my Fannie Mae user ID and password here, click import, and the data will be imported directly from Fannie Mae's webpage. So those are the 3 import options, but the 4th option, if these don't fit into your workflow, would be to manually enter the data. So to manually enter the data, you will say create purchase loan. You'll enter the borrower name here and social security number. Click next, and what the system is going to do is the system is going to perform a check. So it's looking within itself to see if there's any other borrowers with that name or social security numbers logged into the system. Now if there is, it won't be like a fatal error or anything like that. You'll just get a warning which you can override and proceed with. Once the check's done, it will take us to this screen, which is the registration screen. And all of the data pieces that you need to enter to register and rate lock the loan program that you're looking for, they're identified by a red X. Once all the red X's are covered, the price button, price/eligibility button, will become active to where you can check for the loan programs that you're looking for. So I'll identify the data pieces that the red X's tell me to. So product type I'll identify as conventional. I'll also select FHA for demonstration purposes. I'll put in a test address here. Once you enter the zip code, the state, county, and city autofill for you. Now it's important to check that to make sure it's correct. And the sales price. If you enter a percent for down payment, the first lien primary loan amount is identified here. It auto-calculates for you. Now if you have a borrower who is interested in secondary financing, whether that be either the WHEDA Easy Close Loan Program or like a Down Payment Plus or AHP third-party grant provider, you would say yes right here, and then you would enter the amount of that down payment assistance or secondary financing here. So if I enter $5,000, everything works great. I have a $95,000 primary and a $5,000 secondary financing loan or lien, and CLTV calculates correctly to 100%. Now, WHEDA's program does allow you to go over 100% CLTV, but if you'll notice, if I try to enter an amount that would force the CLTV to exceed 100%, the system won't let me. Instead of going to 101, it reduces the primary loan amount to $94,000. So how do I get around that? Well, you get around that by manually adjusting the CLTV first to a percent over 100% to 105, and then we can enter our amounts. So I can enter $95,000 here, and I can go down to my secondary financing amount, and I can enter $6,000 here. And essentially what happens then is the CLTV pulls back from 105 to 101, and my numbers are correct. So just a little bit of a workaround there. Just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that. Now, in addition to the data pieces that were identified by the red X, if you'll notice they're all covered now, and the price/eligibility button has appeared. But one more thing that I do want to do before I run that eligibility check for accuracy purposes, had I imported this, the credit report and credit scores would have also imported. However, I manually entered it, so I need to manually enter the credit scores as well. Nothing will break. There's not a problem with leaving them 0, but what will happen is the eligibility engine will think that the borrower is a non-traditional or 0 credit score borrower. So we don't want that. We want to enter the actual credit scores. So I'll do that there, and I'll click the price button. Now the system will run a check based on the data that we've entered to see what loan programs show up as eligible and what programs don't. Now, if you'll notice, it says eligible loan programs. Nothing's listed. Down here it says display ineligible loan programs. Here they are. Even though the red X's are covered, I should back up here a second. Even though all the red X data is covered, not everything is necessarily, all the data pieces aren't necessarily in the system that need to be there for us to get the program that we're looking for. The nice thing is that if loans do show up as ineligible, it tells you exactly why. So it tells us, do you approve eligible only? And for those of you who are familiar with the Correspondent channel, you'll know that or be aware that Correspondent channel transactions require approve eligible. So if the underwriter, if the lender is performing the underwrite, that transaction does indeed need to be an approve eligible transaction. So if I come back here and change my data to expected AUS response, if I say approve eligible and click the price button, again, reprice and rerun eligibility, hopefully we should get a couple of eligible loan transactions. And indeed we do. So we get the 30-year fixed conforming, which is WHEDA's traditional Fannie Mae-based loan program that we've had for a number of years. We have our new first-time homebuyer program that was announced in January, which is identified by this FTHB, and the FHA loan program shows up as well. Now, it won't let me just register or request the lock here because there's secondary financing. I'll get to that in a second. So first we have to identify what type of secondary financing it is. But one more thing that I wanted to point out is, or two more things actually. First of all, if you're submitting in the correspondent channel now, there is, for our traditional Fannie Mae loan program, there's price tiers. So there's a par price of 102. There's a tier above and below the above and below par, which can also be selected. So if your organization isn't partaking in grid pricing, just select the middle option. Another thing I wanted to bring up is, if you'll notice here, if you look into the loan programs in a little bit more detail, we have HFA preferred risk sharing. The HFA preferred risk sharing no MI variance is showing, and as well down here, the FTHB preferred risk sharing no MI variance is showing here as well. But what if the borrower wants the preferred program where they pay MI, their interest rate is lower on their loan? Well, that program is still showing up down here as ineligible, but again, it tells you exactly why. It says BPMI required. So if we come over here and see that the conventional loan PMI type is set to no MI, if we change that to borrower paid and reprice, what we should see is a flip. We should see the preferred program show up as eligible and the risk sharing no MI program show up as ineligible, and we do. HFA preferred with MI now shows up as eligible. So now we can request our lock. But first, as I mentioned earlier, we have to identify our secondary financing. So is it an easy close loan or is it a third-party provider? So in order to do that, we first have to go to a second lien screen, which is right here. And our Easy Close Loan program is showing up as eligible, and it gives me the option to either register or rate lock the loan. Now, if you're submitting in the correspondent channel, I would say there's a 99% plus chance that you're just essentially in here to lock the rate. If WHEDA was doing the underwrite and it was a pre-approval type situation, you might register the loan. But in the correspondent channel, where you're performing the underwrite and the majority of the work, so to speak, the only thing you're going to want to be doing here is locking the rate. Now, if it's not the Easy Close Loan program that the borrower is interested in, it's a HP Down Payment Plus grant, you would click here. If seller or other lender provides second financing, click here to submit. Now, I'm not going to do either. I'm actually going to take a step back. I'm going to remove the secondary financing data, say no, reprice, recheck eligibility, and what you should see here then is, because there's no secondary financing identified, now the register and request lock options appear here. So what we can do is request the lock out of this screen, and I'll do that. Now, when I do request the lock, I'm requesting the lock. I'm not locking the loan. That's very important to note. WHEDA's lock desk will receive notification that the request has been received. We'll lock the loan, and then we'll notify you when it's been locked. So after I say lock rate, I get one of these, are you sure this is what you want to do screens. Do I want to lock the FTHB, first-time home buyer, HFA preferred with MI, loan variance, loan program, correspondent channel, 30 years, here's the rate, here's my price. Again, do I want to lock that rate? I say I agree, hit confirm, and then what we should come up with is a lock type certificate or a lock type verification registration certificate. Now, we can print that if we want. Otherwise, you can just close out, and a copy will be available in the system should you want to obtain a copy later. So this is a registration certificate. I'll hit close, and the loan shows up on our pipeline. So 802045 shows up here in the pipeline. Lock requested. After WHEDA's lock desk receives the request and locks the loan, this will change to locked. So now you as the correspondent lender, again, you're the processor, underwriter, closer, so you take the loan through those steps, process the file, underwrite the file, close it. Now the file is closed, and you have both origination documents and closing documents, and you want to get those to WHEDA. You need to get those to WHEDA so that you can have them reviewed and you get your money. So how do I do that? You'll re-log into the portal. The loan will, again, show in your pipeline, and you'll click the loan and open the eDocs folder. Uploading correspondent loan documents is very easy. There's two doc types. You have two to choose from. So it's correspondent channel docs is the folder, and correspondent origination docs. Those would, of course, be your origination docs. You can upload those into one large blob. Has to be a PDF. Total size does need to be 50 megabytes or less. And then once you've identified where the the PDF file is on your network drive, you can then, once you've selected it here, then this upload button would appear. And then we also want to upload the closing documents, which is located in the closing documents folder, closing documents clump blob, whatever you want to refer to it as. You'd select that there and upload the closing docs in another group. Now, is that all you need to do? No, it's not. Once you've uploaded those docs to the eDocs folder, one more very important critical step that you do need to do. And you'll notice that here when you register the loan, request the lock, you're assigned 36 conditions. The 36 conditions essentially line up with our application package checklist. It tells you all the documents that you need to upload for all the origination docs that you need to upload for our underwriters to review for the our pre-purchase check. So those are listed here. It essentially coincides with our current loan application package checklist, which is Form 6. It's located on or at WHEDA or www.WHEDA.com. So you could obtain a paper copy there, or you could work off this electronic copy. But more importantly than that is the task. The task tells you essentially what you need to do. It says upload all origination and closing documents, then resolve this task. Very important. If you're taking notes, please write this down, because if you upload the docs and they're sitting there, but you do not resolve this task, WHEDA will not know that you have everything in the eDoc folder that you want, and it's your intent to have our underwriters review it. We won't know that you want our underwriters to review it and perform the pre-purchase check unless you resolve this task. Without resolving this task, these documents are essentially kind of out in no man's land, so to speak. It's the equivalent of putting all the documents on a fax machine that you want to send to WHEDA but not pressing the send button, or the equivalent of printing them off, having them in the overnight envelope, but not putting them in the mail. So again, it tells you exactly what you need to do. You click the task, resolve it, and what will happen then is the task owner, who's WHEDA's processing department, will receive notification that you've resolved the task, and then we will know then that it's your intent to have us essentially, quote-unquote, take the ball and run with it. And we'll process the file and get it to our underwriters. Now, the last thing I wanted to mention was uploading closing documents. Yes, you've uploaded the closing documents. However, WHEDA does need the original note and escrow check. Those two can obviously not be uploaded. So you will still want to overnight those to WHEDA as you do now, same address and everything, and then we'll match those up on our side once they're received. So that's essentially it, and thank you for attending.